Hey everyone, my name is Mick and this is a pile of books. Today we're going to talk about Animalia. Animalia is a novel written by Jean-Baptiste Deamo in 2019, and it's the first of Jean-Baptiste Deamo's novels to be translated into English by Frank Wynne. I really wanted to take some time to talk about this book because I don't have anyone to talk about it with. As I said, the book was translated from French, and there's very few YouTube videos about it. There's no Wikipedia page in English for this novel, and in general, there's not much written and about the analysis, exploration of the themes, etc. So I thought I'd make this video to kind of discuss it because this is a book that has profoundly impacted me. I think about it constantly and the themes that it explores, and I really wanted to get a chance to share it with you all. I want to talk a little bit about what this book is, but I think the more enjoyable part is talking about kind of the thematics, the subjects, and kind of the ideas that it dives into. It's very simple. The book covers the story of a family over 4 generations that run a pig farm in rural France. The story starts pre-World War I with kind of the first set of the family and leads all the way through kind of the modern industrial age of farming. The story starts with a husband and wife that are simply trying to make it through as farmers, trying to survive, trying to find their way in this world, trying not to starve. It's very like kind of brutally honest in the simplicity of it. There's no delusions of grandeur. There's no large mercantile business. This is not a successful family. They're simply trying to get through. They have a daughter named Eleanor who becomes kind of our centralized character over the generations as she moves from a child all the way through to becoming kind of the matriarch of the family towards the end of the book. Eleanor grows up in a very hard life. Her father ends up ailing and dies. Her mother is kind of this cold, hard older woman who kind of oversees them. She eventually falls in love with her cousin, Marcel, and Marcel and her are married, and he is eventually sent to war in World War I, and she believes that he has died, but later he does return, though he is badly disfigured and scarred from the war, both physically and mentally, psychologically. The story follows kind of the hardship of her and Marcel as they try to run the farm, focusing much on the alcoholism and PTSD and just general hardship that Marcel has gone through, and Eleanor, who's there to support him and support the farm and kind of the interfamilial drama of their life. The third act of the book covers kind of this leap forward into the pristine, as it were, industrial age of farming, where Eleanor's son Henry runs the farm with his sons, and this is kind of the culmination of the book. It's the shortest, I would say, of the acts, and largely culminates in the kind of exploration of Jerome, who's a deaf and mute son of Henry's, who is kind of the first child in the family to see a way out, and you kind of get the impression that he is ready to leave this life of hardship and toil, which is demonstrated throughout the novel, and kind of leave it behind. That's the summary of the plot at a high level, but the themes explored in the novel are fascinating, namely because when we think of the concept of this story in the modern Western context of like maybe an American story, you would have something like the struggle of man against nature and the way that man is able to overcome nature. And maybe that's a modernist take that is largely rejected in stories now, but maybe if this book was written in America today, it would be more about the horrors of industrialization and the need for us to return to a more simple time of kind of rural family farming and kind of the beauty of the nuclear family. Or we might see a story that's somewhat about kind of the juxtaposition of the carnal avarice of humanity against the kind of purity of nature, and the pigs as these like kind of beautiful innocent creatures that are kind of subjugated. All of these things are largely rejected in the way that the book presents the story to you. Rather than having a juxtaposition between the animals and the humans, you instead see them living parallel destinies over the generations. Obviously, the book concerns pig farming. It's a very grotesque, it's a very violent kind of industry, and the book does not pull any punches. From a prose perspective, it's bleak, it's brutal, it's very clinical in the way that it explores the topics of the slaughter of animals, the breeding of animals, and the general subjugation of farm life. But it doesn't juxtapose this in the inhumanity of the industrial age versus the simplicity and kind of like necessity of the, let's say, the olden days. Instead, they're presented exactly the same. And rather than presenting, the humans as kind of these evil subjugators that are kind of just using the pigs to make money or to make a better life for themselves, we instead see the humans kind of subjugated under the pressures of life itself, the kind of crushing weight of finances, being poor, of sickness, like I said, of PTSD, of intergenerational trauma, of familial trauma, of abuse from a physical and a psychological standpoint. And so rather than us leaving with the impression that somehow, oh, the humans are the enemy and the pigs are good, you instead get just kind of a brutally honest look at two ways in which life drags us all down. I think that this kind of backbone of thematic is really boiled down to the core idea of the stripping away of dignity. We do see the pigs stripped of their dignity, and they are demonstrated to us in the book as nothing more than somewhat tools for humans to use to survive, and they are kind of the subjects underneath this kind of industry that expands around them as the novel goes on. But we also see, obviously, people stripped of their humanity. Eleanor's mother is kind of referred to as the genetrix, which is actually a term used for kind of breeding hogs. It's a horrible kind of dehumanization. And after her husband dies, she's just referred to as the widow, one of the characters. There's this idea that life strips the dignity from us all. And I think that I've never seen a book that explores this idea in quite the same way. We see the kind of the grit and the grime of the squalor in which the pigs themselves live, and also the grit, the grime, and the squalor in which the humans live, because they don't have aspiration and they don't have a way out, and instead they seem trapped in this constant flow towards the future. And time itself is demonstrated in a very interesting way in this book, in which we typically see it as obviously progression. Usually it's a progression towards something better, or you flip the narrative of the novel and we actually should, return to tradition, and we juxtapose and show that as time gets further on, life gets, worse for everyone involved, something like this. But time is just a metronome in this book that simply like moves forward. It doesn't represent progress. In fact, it kind of represents the loop of being stuck. The same animal, the same type of person, the same type of family, no matter how much time moves on. I really think that the only like breaks from the bleakness in which the novel gives you come from the grandson Jerome. Like I said, this kind of deaf mute child who really is the first in the generations of family members to begin to begins to conceptualize the idea of being able to break free. And the book itself ends with this meditation on the beast, this massive lurching hog who lives in the confines of this grotesque industrial farm, and the hog itself dreams of the open field and dreams of running free, and this idea that it could go drink from a fresh river while it is confined within a cage that barely keeps it alive. This book is stuck with me for so long, in the way that it demonstrates this picture of life. I would even compare it in some ways that my takeaway feelings are the same that I had the first time you read, obviously, like, Consider the Lobster, and this idea of kind of what do we put animals through, and who are we as humans as we subject them to cruelty and to the things that may be necessary for our survival, but are stripping them of dignity nonetheless. I think there's obviously a long lineage of kind of generational family stories, and it's weird to think of something like 100 Years of Solitude, but in the way that we explore generational trauma, I think that Animalia does a really, really excellent job of showcasing kind of the sins of the father being passed down to the sons in a very straightforward way. And I'm also kind of reminded, if you are a fan of something like The Sound and the Fury, I think there's a lot for you to read here. The Sound and the Fury obviously is a much more philosophical book, I think, than this one is. I think what struck me so much about this book is that there is no overt morality tale, and there is no overt philosophy about life that is demonstrated within the text or the dialogue itself. It really is something that you have to read and sit with and try to understand, why was I presented with this story, and why was I presented with the story this way? Why was I left with something with so little hope around it, and why was there no punishment for the evildoers, and what are we supposed to take away about life? So, as I said, this book has really left an impact on me. I think it's really underappreciated, maybe just in English-speaking circles or in the US. But I hope you get a chance to read it. I hope you get a chance to kind of take a deep dive into, explore the characters of this family, but also kind of explore the themes around dignity, humanity, nature, sex, violence, and trauma that are represented here. My name is Mick, and this has been A Pile of Books, and I'll be back with another one. Thank you.